So first, hi. I got to say hi to lots of you just a few moments ago. My name is Seth Bush. I'm the chair of the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. And I'm so excited you all have taken time out of your day to be here with us today. It's sort of a bummer that we don't get to see you actually in physical reality. I understand that. But like I said, I'm just so excited you've taken time to join us here in virtual land today and give us a chance to brag about the Chemistry and Biochemistry Department and maybe even answer some of your questions. By the way, we're going to answer lots of your questions as best we can. You can see, I'm not quite sure what you exactly see, but I'm hoping you can see that we've got a bunch of faculty and students here who are going to be here to help us kind of navigate this. I want to kind of address first a little elephant in the room. If you're anything like me, adjusting to sort of virtual meetings has been a bit of a heavy lift. So apologies that we're having to make this adjustment, but it's also kind of exciting in the sense that we're able to get more of you here than we might be able to get in person, because it turns out the commute is a little bit shorter. I do want to talk a little bit about nuts and bolts about how we're going to run this Zoominar. I think it's not called that, but I'm going to keep calling it that because I think it's funny. And I'm going to apologize to those who are already in the know and not a Luddite like myself who understand how this works, but I'm just going to share it. At the bottom of the Zoom bar, you should see a little thing that says Q&A. It's got, it looks just like this. I'm circling it here on the PowerPoint. What I'm hoping is that during today's webinar or Zoominar, as you have questions, you'll post them there, okay? And what's going to happen behind the scenes is our Zoominar Czarina, Ashley McDonald, Dr. Ashley McDonald is going to sort those questions with the help of Dr. Gregson and Dr. Sapper. Wave your hand so everybody can see you, okay? They're going to be sorting those questions. Some of them they're going to answer right away as directly as you put them in, and some of them they're going to hold off for our panelists. So some of the questions might get answered right away, and some might take a little bit of time, but we're going to do our very best to answer just as many as we possibly can, all right? Now, full disclosure mode, this is the first webinar as a Department of Chemistry has ever run. So chemistry and biochemistry, so some things are going to go off the rails, but we're going to do our very best and get as far and learn as much as we possibly can. So that's where we're headed. So let's talk a little bit about what you're in for today. So what are you in for today? I just forwarded it to a little bit of an outline of what we're going to be doing today. Our outline for today is kind of framed by our primary guiding principle, and that is undergraduates are our focus. Undergraduates are our focus in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. So as a result, the folks that I've asked to join us today are going to speak to issues that are going to be really, really relevant to helping you be successful here. So first, we're going to hear from Dr. Emily Fogel. She's a cohort advisor. She's among one of our 4 cohort advisors that support our majors along their path. And that's a 4-year path, mom and dad, whoever's listening out there. We get most of our students out there, and it's good. Afterwards, we're going to hear from Dr. Katie Watts about undergraduate research. And that's authentic, meaningful research that contributes to the scientific community that you are going to do, right? And you're going to have an opportunity to do. Next, Dr. Keist is going to help you get to know the studio. The studio is part of our commitment to effective teaching and learning, and part of our commitment to keeping class sizes kind of manageable and small. And finally, Kimberly and Kaylin. Can you wave, Kimberly and Kaylin? Yay. They're here representing all of our students. It's a heavy task. We have a lot of students and there's only 2 of them. But they're going to share a little bit about our community, particularly maybe a little bit about our clubs. All right. So that's where we're headed. So without further ado, I'm going to forward this one more time and then ask Dr. Fogel to share a little bit about our cohort advising.
All right. Well, welcome to everybody here today. So we do advising a little bit differently in chemistry and biochemistry. We call it cohort advising. And so you guys are going to all have the same faculty advisor, and you're going to have that faculty advisor for 4 years. And I am your cohort advisor. So you guys are stuck with me for 4 years or until you actually graduate. So typically how this is going to work is that we'll have a quarterly sort of check-in. And so we'll talk and we'll sort of see how you're doing. We'll talk about what classes you should be enrolled in so that you're making good progress. If you might have gotten off track a little bit, we can talk about how to correct that so that you can get back on track. We can also talk about things that you want to do in the future. And then how are you preparing now for doing those things in the future. Sometimes we call this intrusive advising because if I don't hear from you and if I look over your schedule and I find that you are not registered for the courses that you need to be in so that you can make good progress, then I'm going to email you. And so I'm going to check in and I'm going to sort of see what's going on and see if there's anything I can do in order to help you so that you can make good progress towards your degree. We also like this system because it provides you with a point person. So I am your point person. So if you have a question and you're really not sure who to ask, you should ask me. So you guys will be my third group of people that I've brought to graduation. So I do know a fair number of answers to questions that you probably have. But if I don't, and oftentimes you guys come up with good questions that I sometimes don't know the answer to, I can definitely connect you with the folks that will be able to answer your questions. So the last thing I think I want to talk about right now is to put a little word in for Chem 101. So Chem 101 is a 1-unit seminar class that I'm leading in the fall, and I really strongly encourage you guys to take that class. So what we're going to be doing in that class is basically building community and then also introducing you to some of the resources that you have access to. So you guys will get to meet other chemistry and biochemistry majors. So these are the folks that you're going to be taking organic chemistry and physical chemistry and biochemistry together with. So you'll be together for the next 4+ years. And so you'll begin building that sense of community. You'll also be introduced to some of the research that folks are doing. Student clubs, and then other resources that the university and the department have for you. So again, Chem 101, I really recommend that you guys enroll in that and take that class.
All right. Ashley, do we have any questions that have come up that might be directed for Dr. Fogel?
So one question that we've had for Dr. Fogel is from a potential transfer student, and they want to know, is Chem 101 recommended for the transfer students, or do we have some kind of different program that's offered to orient the transfer students?
Yeah, so we do recommend that transfer students take Chem 101 because it is going to help build community. You'll get to meet some other transfer students and other folks in the department. You'll get an introduction to the research that folks are doing. So it's a good resource for transfer students as well as first-time students. And then the university also has some transfer student specific resources that you will also have access to.
Thanks, Dr. Fogel. I'd add, we've got the Chem 101 is now part of a 4-class sequence that and these are professional classes that go from Chem 101 to 203. Don't ask me why the numbers work that way. I apologize. To 303 to 403. So some transfer students will start in 101, which is a great place for them to go, because some might end up starting in 101 and 203 in that first year. And it's a way to kind of start meeting the department. Excellent. Thank you again. As you have more questions, everybody, don't hesitate to put them in. Don't be shy. Next up, I've got Dr. Watts. Dr. Watts is going to share a little bit about research here at Cal Poly.
Hello and welcome again to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about kind of the why and what's of research at Cal Poly, and especially in our department. We think that research is a fundamental part of being a scientist, and most jobs as a scientist will involve research in some way. And research is also really different from a normal lab class because we do experiments to find an unknown result that can really push the needle on solving important scientific problems. At the end of your undergraduate career, research experience really gives you a one-up on many other graduates because you've had that hands-on experience solving real world problems and using state-of-the-art equipment that we have available in our department and methods that you learn throughout the research experience. The opportunity to do undergraduate research really is a nice, unique facet of your education at Cal Poly. A lot of large universities are not going to have the same experience available for undergraduates. And I personally think it's one of the best ways to take advantage of our Learn by Doing motto. So if we think about what kinds of research you can do in our department, we have faculty advisors from all over the spectrum of research in chemistry and biochemistry. And although we're spread out in all different areas of research, we're really united by the motivation to provide authentic research experiences for students in solving real world problems. For example, one of our faculty studies ocean acidification, and students get hands-on experience collecting samples over a time course at our Center for Marine Science. And then they return to the lab to analyze samples using state-of-the-art equipment for changes in the chemical composition of the ocean. That brings us to another idea that unites all the faculty across the many research areas that we study. And at least in our department, we all aim to understand the world at a molecular level. So for example, some of us try to understand how to make molecules like drugs and polymeric materials, how nature makes molecules like DNA, proteins, and antibiotics, how big molecules like proteins and DNA function on their own and interact with one another, and what molecules in the environments can tell us about certain natural processes like forest fires, how to use molecules to our advantage, like developing diagnostic tests, and also how to teach students about molecules. Several of our faculty do research in chemical education. So next big question is, how do you get involved? Well, the good news is our department provides many opportunities for you to meet these faculty to find out about what research opportunities are available in their groups. We do research both during the school year and during the summer. In the school year, this is usually for upper division elective course credit. And in the summer, we offer paid opportunities. We typically have funding for 50 paid positions by the William and Melinda Frost Foundation, and another 30 to 40 positions funded by matching funds from faculty's external grants. In the summer, we also have networking events like seminars, a career panel, workshops, and a symposium at the end of the summer to present all of your hard work. And throughout the year, students also have opportunities to present their research locally, regionally, and nationally at professional conferences. To meet the faculty, you're going to meet a lot of us at orientation. And as Dr. Fogel mentioned, you'll also meet us a lot in your Chem 101 class, where we'll come and give a little snippet about our research projects. And you can always email faculty or stop by office hours to get more information. There's also a nice summer research event hosted by our student club, ACTS, and a lot of faculty also participate in this, so you can learn more about research at that time as well. We definitely encourage you to get involved as early as you can. So please, you can start checking out faculty's web pages as early as now and getting in touch. Many of us do take freshmen in our group.
Thank you, Dr. Watts. Dr. McDonald, are there questions that have come up that we might be able to ask Dr. Watts right now?
So there's a question here that we might also want to involve Dr. Sapper on the answer. And they've asked, are there any research opportunities that involve collaborative work with companies or people in the community?
Thanks, Dr. McDonald. Yeah, I can say a few words about that. In the Polymers and Coatings program, we do a lot of work that is either funded by or done in collaboration with companies. A lot of those are in the Los Angeles area or in the Bay Area, polymers and paints and coatings companies. We also do some collaborative work with aerospace companies that are local here. They're looking for new materials for their products. And there are colleagues of mine who I know do work with other companies nearby in the area as well.
Excellent, thanks. So again, keep those questions coming in. I know, Dr. McDonald, are there more for this particular topic right now?
I just saw one actually on the chat that I can answer. There's a question about, are freshmen able to get involved in research and is it easy to do so? And
Excellent.
absolutely, there are some groups that require, a certain course structure for their group. So some groups, they want you to have taken organic chemistry, but a lot of the groups in the department absolutely take freshmen into their group.
Excellent, thank you. So the questions are rolling in. This is wonderful. We're gonna, if your question doesn't get answered right away, we're saving some for the end, but lots of them are getting answered as we go, and we might do some summaries of the ones that are being answered as we go. Thanks again, Dr. Watts. Next, we're gonna transition and talk a little bit about our studios, and I'm gonna ask Dr. Keist to jump in here and share about what it means to learn in a studio.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm glad you're here, wherever here is for you. My name's Alan Keist, and all of the faculty that you see in this webinar all teach general chemistry. And I am one of the coordinators that help wrangle all these folks together in our first year general chemistry classes. The learn by doing philosophy, and you keep hearing this phrase, it's not just a motto, it is a philosophy. And it extends, that philosophy extends through your whole Cal Poly experience, not just in research, but also in your classes. And at Cal Poly, we take really a unique approach to our first year classes. Unlike most universities where you'd take, say, 3 one-hour lectures per week and then 1 3-hour-a-week lab, we have combined lecture and lab into 1 6-hour experience that happens either 2 hours 3 times a week or twice 3 hours a week. And we call this concept studio because, like an artist studio, it allows you to display your knowledge of chemistry through hands-on experimentation. So the studio concept allows us to reduce the amount of telling you about chemistry and increase the amount of time you spend doing chemistry. I tell my students on the first day of class that, contrary to popular belief, the word chemistry is a verb, not a noun. And you need to do chemistry in order to learn chemistry. And that's the underlying idea behind our studio classrooms. This active learning approach is much more fun and rewarding than simply sitting in an auditorium with 500 other students like at some other universities. But it can also be a little bit more challenging, and it takes some getting used to, particularly if you're used to mostly just hearing lectures from teachers. And that's why our general chemistry courses are small. The biggest class you would have in your first year general chemistry class is 64 students, so it's pretty small. And that way you have the tools and the experiences and most importantly, the personal guidance from professors, not TAs, to help you learn in our hands-on studio classes. In addition to our professors, each of those classes has 2, we call them learning assistants. These are upper level undergraduate students who have already taken the course and who get weekly training on how to teach. And so there are really 3 people in that room to help you out and help you learn chemistry as you're doing experimentation and other active learning techniques. Our research on the studio general chemistry concept has shown that students significantly improve their success in the course versus the traditional separate lecture lab method of teaching. And we think that this application of this learn by doing approach is how we can help ensure that our students start out with the very best foundation possible for the rest of their courses. So I think you'll find you can see some of the pictures that Seth is showing there. That doesn't look like a typical chemistry classroom that you might be thinking of. It looks like a lab, and it's supposed to look like a lab because it is a lab, and it's an opportunity for you to do that kind of hands-on work and really cement those foundational ideas.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Keist. There are a couple of questions I saw in the background as we go that I'm going to address directly here, and then Ashley, if you could share one more, I'd appreciate that. So a couple folks were asking about average class sizes. So our first year classes range between 48 and 64 in our chemistry department. So our studios either have a 48-person studio or a 64-person studio. You can contrast that to lots of places where that first year experience is in the hundreds. We're not in the hundreds. Our upper division classes, I've got my numbers here so I don't get it wrong. Our upper division classes have lectures that range generally from about 18 to 48, or sometimes a little bigger, but mostly in that range, with labs that range in size from about 12 to 16. Another student asked about student-faculty ratio within our department. We have roughly 300 majors, and we have about 50 full-time faculty with PhDs. I trust you guys can do the math. That's pretty straightforward. Ashley, how are we doing? Dr. McDonald, how are we doing for questions?
We're doing pretty well. There is a very interesting question from someone who wants to know if they want to get started in a research progress program and they have a good idea and it's not really something that's currently being addressed, how would they get that project started? And Dr. Sapper is actually going to answer that question for us.
Sure. I think many of us have had that happen to us. We love to hear from students, right? We love students who are interested in research to drop by our office hours, to talk to us about their new ideas. And I think you'd be surprised how often you find a faculty member who is willing to work with you on your idea. We love to try new things, right? So I encourage you to pursue that.
And we've had another question, several questions. I'm kind of combining several questions together here, but we've had several questions about either double majors or majors and minors, and how easy is it to have a minor? And what about if it's a minor in another college?
I'd ask maybe one of the cohort advisors would want to speak to that.
Sure, I can talk about that. So I've known many students have minors in other colleges. It requires a little bit of planning to make sure that you get all of those courses, but it's certainly pretty doable. In terms of other majors, it kind of depends on what major it is and how much overlap there is between your chemistry or biochemistry classes and that major. That being said, I do know people who have, let's say, a math major and a chemistry major, and sometimes it takes them a quarter or two longer to graduate, but it is certainly something that is possible if you're committed to doing that.
And I'd add on to this that I see lots of double majors coming through my department or through the chair's office, and they're lots of times very near field, and we're able to find lots of synergies. Say a physics chemistry double major, we can see, well, maybe quantum mechanics and physics can count for quantum mechanics and chemistry, so we can find some synergies that way. But we also see ones that are not quite as obvious. I've got a music chemistry double major, or music biochemistry double major, graduating right now. And yeah, it's going to take her an extra quarter, but she's getting to follow both of her passions at once. I saw another kind of question that I get from incoming students quite a bit about AP. And I know that if I saw it here, maybe more people than just asked it have it. The policies for AP credit in chemistry, they're posted at the Cal Poly website. Typically, if you have a 5 on the chemistry AP, that qualifies you to count the 124 class. That's the first class in our 3-quarter sequence. However, we strongly encourage you to take 124 and stomp all over it and do really, really great in that class, because it turns out walking in with that level of background allows you to learn and deeper and more. I have anecdotal stories from several students who walked in questioning whether they should take that first quarter or just jump to the second quarter. The students I've seen who've taken that first quarter, taken the time to really learn it in a very depthful way, had a little easier transition to Cal Poly. It wasn't that they weren't challenged in that class. It was that wasn't the biggest challenge of the quarter. So 5 and above, you can get 124 credit. And if you're planning to do that, I would really strongly recommend you talk with Dr. Fogel or one of the other cohort advisors to get their thoughts on it. Because there's no harm in being really, really good in your first quarter. Just saying. Any other questions, Dr. McDonald?
So Dr. Bush, we've actually had a question that I think is right up your alley, and someone wants to know about the process for obtaining a single subject teaching credential in chemistry.
Oh my gosh, it's like there's a plant. Somebody out there is planted, I'm sure.
I know, I'm just telling you the question.
Thank you. So one of the hats I wear, I'm actually the single subject advisor for chemistry. So the single subject credential, for those of you who don't know, is a credential that allows you to teach at the junior high and senior high, or junior high and high school level. So we have a chemistry credential on campus. It's a +1, so people typically do their undergraduate in either chemistry or biochemistry, and then they can enter that credential in their next year. Now, since I've been here, we've developed all sorts of ways to get people oriented and ready to be able to do that. My favorite is called the Learn by Doing Lab. We bring in hundreds and hundreds of kids each week to do hands-on science. This turns out is a great way to decide whether or not you like teaching, because if you don't like doing hands-on science with hundreds of 5th graders, you probably don't like it. We also have several grants that are on campus to support students who are thinking about becoming teachers. There's a National Science Foundation NOICE grant, which actually pays $20,000 or $15,000 a year, sorry, towards your tuition if you join this. And if you're interested in those kind of things, I can tell you more down the way. But anyway, but there's a direct path, and if that's something you're interested in, when you walked onto campus, you'd come to my office, and we would chat about it, and we could set out what that path would look like for you over the next few years. Excellent. All right, we'll circle around if we have more questions as we go. I'm going to ask we're going to transition here and have our favorite folks share a little bit, our students. So Kaylin, I'm going to ask you to share first, and then Kimberly, I'm going to ask you to share second. Is that okay? All right, Kaylin, you're up.
Okay. Well, I'm Kaylin. I'm a 3rd-year chemistry major, and I think that in general, any chemistry or biochemistry student would say we have a really strong community, from just the students interacting with each other to professor student interactions to the actual clubs that are established for students on campus. So the 2 main kind of department clubs are ACS, the American Chemical Society, and ACS, which is our chemistry, biochemistry professional fraternity, which I think Kimberly is in, so she'll talk more about that. So I am in ACS, so I can talk a little bit about that. It's more of a social club in general, but it also has a lot of really good resources. We talk about internships, we talk about how to plan your courses. So in addition to the great faculty advising and the other resources you have through the university, you also have your peers and upperclassmen who are willing to help you with kind of anything you need. And then it also just helps build a really good social community. We have events. The 2 clubs help put on the department picnic at the end of the year, where the whole department goes and has a little party. And yeah, it's really fun. Feel free to ask us any questions about that or anything else. So I'll let Kimberly take over.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with Kaylin talking about the close community of the department. Ever since like my first day, I just felt really welcomed by both the students and the professors. So I am a member of the co-ed professional chemistry fraternity, Alpha Chi Sigma, and a lot of people just call it ACS for short. And there are a lot of like great events that happen throughout the year, and I just love that I've found like such a great community. And I definitely, coming into college, joining a professional fraternity was like not something that was on my radar. I didn't expect myself to do that, but I've really enjoyed my time there and getting to know more people in the department. And there's just such a great support group. And it's definitely like one of the best decisions I've made during my time at Cal Poly.
Excellent. Ashley, Dr. McDonald, are there questions that have come up that maybe a student perspective might help on?
So I think this is a question that has come up a lot. And I think that having the students address it would be great. So a lot of people have asked about things after Cal Poly, like going to med school, going to dental school, going to grad school. And some people have asked like what percentage of people go to grad school or what percentage of people go to professional school. But could the students just say kind of like you know, what things do they see their peers doing? Like, what are the variety of things that our current students are moving on to from Cal Poly?
Yeah, so to start, I think there's such a big range of options that it really has a promising kind of connotation for the future of anyone in this major, I think. I personally am not planning to go on to grad school or professional school. I am more interested in food chemistry, so that's kind of one direction that you can take, and I'm planning to go into industry right away. But a lot of my friends are going into grad school to pursue a master's or PhD in chemistry, or to go on to be a professor eventually. A lot of people are going to med school, and there are a lot of options if you don't want to go on to further schooling, to go into pharmacy, into cosmetics, into a bunch of different industries. So I think it's a really wide range of options.
Okay, there's actually another question specifically for the students. Is joining the College of Science and Math learning community recommended? And can you tell me anything about the learning community?
So within the learning communities, housing just tries to pair you up or put you in like similar proximity with people of your major. So when I was in the I was in the COSAM learning community in Yaki Tutu my first year, and I was just with a lot of students who were in biology, biochemistry, and I definitely would recommend it because you end up living with a lot of the same people you have classes with, so it just makes it a lot easier to meet up in the study halls within the dorms. I really enjoyed it. It got me a lot closer to people within the same major. So I definitely would recommend it, but it's definitely not something you have to do if you do want to branch out and meet other people. But I think it's a really great way to meet new people.
Hey, Kimberly, would you follow up on the question Caitlin was asked as well? Is there more you would add to that in terms of what you're seeing people go off and do?
Yeah, so when I came to Cal Poly, I was very narrow-minded in terms of like what I wanted to do, and talking to different people within the same major, like chemistry and biochemistry, I was actually so shocked to hear about what other people wanted to do, because like they were things that I had never even thought of. Like Kaylin mentioned she wanted to go into food chemistry, and I like that didn't even like register as something that like was a possibility in the future. So I've definitely seen a wide variety of like people who want to go into medical school or just some sort of like pre-health profession. I definitely have seen a good majority, I wouldn't say a majority, but there is a pretty good percentage of people who want to pursue graduate school afterwards. But it's definitely not something where I would say like, oh, if you're in the department, like you're only thinking about going to medical school or graduate school. There's definitely like a healthy like range of people who want to do different things with their career and their major afterwards.
Thanks. Any other general questions for students, Dr. McDonald?
Let's see. I think that's what we've got.
Well, look at that. Well, so far so good. Thank you, students. And I want everybody to acknowledge our students were able to get on here with like less than 24 hours notice. And I just really, really appreciate them being here today, because that's just, you know, part and parcel of really who we are. All right, so this brings us to our last slide. And it looks like our last slide might have cut off the bottom. Can folks see the bottom corner here? Is it cut off? Well, we'll find out. So obviously we're not in person, and if we were in person, we'd at this stage break up into little groups and everybody would ask lots and lots of questions. We'd shake hands. Apparently we're not allowed to do that anymore. I guess we're not even allowed to touch elbows anymore, but that's okay. So at this stage, we're gonna move into sort of more of a Q&A. Dr. McDonald, if there are questions I can answer, you're gonna send them to me. And if there are questions others can answer, we'll send them around. And I gotta tell you, if you have more Q's than A's, do send them to the email address that's on here, and we'll be able to get them to you. If the email address isn't showing, I'm not sure why. It doesn't, maybe it's just my screen it's not showing on. I don't know. But if it's not showing, we'll make sure that we can get it to you in one of the chats or something. All right, do we have more questions?
So we actually have another question that I do want to throw to the students.
Oh, excellent.
Someone just said, you know, that they know they love chemistry and that they've had some different experiences, but what in the department really helped you find your niche? What in the department really helped you figure out where you belonged in Cal Poly Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry? And I would love to have the students answer that one.
Yeah, so I guess I think we can probably both answer this because it's a little bit different for everybody. I had a really similar experience. I was a senior in high school and I knew I loved chemistry, and that was about it. So my advice probably would be to declare your major in chemistry, really kind of get involved and navigate the different subjects that you'll find, because when I was coming into college, I don't even think I knew about all the different subfields in chemistry. So as you're going through your major coursework, that'll be really helpful. Another thing is to get involved in research as soon as you can, because that's really where I think a lot of people find their area that they like and that they're comfortable in. I have actually been in 3 different research groups, which is totally fine. Some people will get involved in one and they will stay in that their whole time at Cal Poly. But for some people, it takes a little bit longer to find where you fit. And I think research is something that really helps with that.
Yeah, this definitely really resonates with me because this kind of describes me now. I came into Cal Poly and I was like, I'm gonna be like go into PreHealth, but then I like had an honest conversation with myself and I was like, I know I like chemistry, but like I want to make sure that whatever I want to do like is what I truly love, and I definitely want to explore all of my options. So something that like one of my favorite things about the department is during my first year, I was just firing emails to a bunch of different professors about research, because you hear a lot about undergraduate research, and it's something I wanted to take part in. So I would just have a bunch of meetings with different professors talking about like what they were interested in, how that fit into what I was interested in, and I eventually found a group that I really enjoyed. I'm in a research group currently. But something now that's kind of new is I'm taking like coding classes, and it falls in with the bioinformatics minor, which is something new that like the department collaborated with like different colleges and different majors to pursue. So one thing that I like really want to stress is that everyone in the department is just so supportive of like you trying like different things, like have a little taste of everything so that you can really figure it out. And like everyone kind of reassures me like it's okay if I haven't figured it out, it's okay if you haven't, like there are going to be people there for you to help you along the way, which I really love. So I know like that's just a really big fear going into college, like not knowing exactly what you want to do. But like people have told me this so many times, and I guess it's like really special that I get to share that, but like that is okay. We have such a great community of people who are going to help you along the way. So don't even worry about it. Just like enjoy the ride, really.
So, hey, I've got to apologize to everybody. Apparently I can write on my screen about as well as a 4-year-old. So I'm going to turn that should say @ So if we don't get a question answered today, if you email us at oh gosh, I don't know, make that an at calpoly.edu, we'll be able to get you answers, okay? So, Dr. McDonald, what other questions do we have?
Okay, so we have another question about AP credit. In particular, they heard your answer about AP credit previously, but they wondered if the policy is going to be any different this year because the test is going to be set up differently.
We have not anticipated changing our policy. Again, what I've seen at the campus level, there's agreements as to how AP credit articulates into our different classes. So Chem 124, which is the most relevant for everybody on this call, is a 5 on the AP. It turns out Chem 110 would be I think a 4 on the AP. And we don't anticipate changing that just because they've had to change how they're administering it. I know for everybody out there in La La Land here, my daughter's getting ready to take her chemistry AP in a few weeks, or I guess, and she's as confused as everybody. But I'll tell you, that is the formal policy on campus for how credit articulates, and informally, we really would strongly encourage folks to take that first quarter chemistry class and just stomp all over it with their wonderful AP background.
All right, we've had another question where someone wants to know about what kinds of things helped students transition into college, and Kaylin has actually kindly offered to answer this one, so I'm going to throw it to Kaylin.
Yeah, I think I know everyone has a different experience before college. I went to a really small high school, a Catholic school, so it was kind of different. I'm also out of state, so it was me moving to California, go to this big public state school. So it was a bit of a transition. I think the best thing you can do is just join a club, any club. It doesn't have to be a chemistry club or an academic club. We have like 300 something clubs on campus. And so having a little community is going to make it feel so much smaller. And I think the transition is easier for most people than they think it's going to be. I think the best things you can do is, again, just find a smaller community to make the campus feel a little bit smaller. Get involved in your department if that's something that you're interested in, and also just kind of establish what the transition is going to look like to you with your parents, because if you have that expectation with them, how often you're going to talk, how much independence or help that you need, that's really what's going to make or break it for a lot of people, I think. And Kimberly, feel free to add on to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just finding your friends or just like a group that you like to spend time with. I think that's really important when transitioning into college. I also think it's really important to familiarize yourself with a lot of the resources we have on campus. So knowing where the Mustang Success Center is, which if you attend Cal Poly, you'll hopefully find out where that is. And also just like knowing like how to, or like the different offices that you can go to for advising centers. And just like, yeah, getting to know like a lot of the events that we have on campus, or knowing like who you can reach out to. Sorry.
Okay, so I've kind of been throughout the conversation, I've been collecting some of the common themes, maybe that didn't quite, I know sometimes these questions got answered a little bit in the Q&A, but I think we have, I want to give people some more opportunities to discuss some of these things. There were a lot of questions about various pre-health professions. Is there a pharmacy school that students get into a lot? What percentage of students go to dental school? What percentage of students go to med school? And someone mentioned that we actually have one of the faculty, Dr. Watts, answered that we have a pre-health advising center. And I think that that's actually a really great resource on campus. And I was going to ask Dr. Watts or one of the other cohort advisors to maybe talk a little bit more about that pre-health advising center.
I know students do get really good help with applications to whatever kind of professional school they're trying to apply to, and they do get a lot of advice about what coursework is going to be appropriate for what particular programs they're planning to apply to. So it's a really good idea to check that out, and if any of the other cohort advisors have anything else to add.
I can add just a little bit there. I'm Greg Scott, and we have a lot of students who are interested in pre-health careers, and the pre-health advising is not just like one person. There's like a whole staff over there dedicated to this, and they have student pre-health advisors. So there's like all kinds of opportunities for drop-in appointments and to go over and like have sit downs, and they're really thorough and really helpful. So when I sit down with students, we talk a lot about sort of their plans for their future, but I often have them collaborate also with the pre-health advising center, because they really know the ins and outs of all the pre-health programs and what's required for each of those individual things and for your individual goals. So they're a really outstanding resource.
Dr. McDonald, can you share the link Dr. Gregson has shared for the Zoom meeting for the pre-health profession group?
Yes, I can share that with everyone, I think.
To be clear, that's a general session for all College of Science and Math students who want to check in with our Student Services Center. It's not just pre-health, although that's a large part of the work they do.
Thanks, Dr. Gregson.
Excellent. We've also had a couple questions that haven't really been addressed about work study and what work study programs are available on campus and how students can do that.
Oh man, you're all looking at me and I should know the answer to this and I don't know the answer to this. Dr. Gregson, do you have a sense of this from the Dean's office? I'm not positive exactly how work study works other than we get really awesome people who come and work with us in work study.
I answered that question online and I provided a link to our general work study campus resource. There's places to apply for jobs in the portal once you're here. As you know, you've had many work study students working in the chemistry department, not just in the office, but also in the stock rooms and various other areas. There's a lot of work on campus. There's a lot of positions across campus. It's a very successful program for us.
Another one that kind of is a compilation of several other questions is that people have asked about what's currently going on in research. Like, are we able to do any research virtually or online? And there were a couple great answers from Dr. Watts and from Dr. Bachman in the Q&A session, but I wondered if one or both of them could elaborate on that a bit more.
Go ahead, Emily, go ahead.
I'd be happy to talk a little bit. I was able to keep all of my students who work in my research group engaged this quarter and just have us shift our focus a little bit. And so instead of thinking about, my specialty is marine chemistry. And so instead of thinking about being in the field and taking samples and analyzing samples in the lab, we're doing a lot of thinking. So we're reading a lot of primary literature to sort of gain context and understanding of the field. And then we're doing a lot of data processing and data plotting, like taking a really careful look at our data and then continuing that with writing a lot, doing a lot of analysis and sort of report writing so that we'll be ready to hit the ground running again when we can get back in the lab.
And Dr. Egon, did you have anything to add to that?
No, Dr. Bachman had everything that I would add to that.
Okay, so another question that's just come up that I think would be interesting for the cohort advisors to address is, could you sort of compare the biochemistry major to both the chemistry major and then to the biology major? Like, what is unique about that biochemistry major?
Sure, I guess I can address that. So the biochemistry major has a year-long sequence of biochemistry classes, and then you also take two upper division lab classes that focus on, one focuses on proteins and the other one focuses on molecular biology. And so that's the main difference between the chemistry degree and the biochemistry degree. So the chemistry degree doesn't take that year-long series and also doesn't take those two upper division labs. In terms of a comparison between biology and biochemistry, it really depends on the biology concentration that you are taking. So if you take an ecology concentration, then your courses are quite different than what you would be taking in biochemistry. But if you take cell and molecular biology concentration, then there's a lot more overlap. So with the cell and molecular biology concentration, you take many of the same chemistry and biochemistry courses, but then you have more options, or you are required to take more courses within biology. So like immunology and some things like this.
So I also saw a question pop along talking about how easy is it to move between chem and biochem in terms of a major. To be frank, the first year is nearly identical. And that is a very permeable membrane. For nerds in the audience, we can giggle a little. So that's a very permeable membrane. I see students who come in biochem who change to chem, and people who come in chem change to biochem kind of regularly. And it turns out, as you figure out where your interests are and where you want to take your career, that's a totally reasonable approach. What will happen if that's something you want to do is you'll come to my office hours and you'll say, hey, Seth, I'm thinking about changing from chem to biochem or vice versa. And I will say, oh, have you talked to Dr. Fogel, your cohort advisor, about this yet? And laid out what that plan would look like. And you'll say, of course, well, of course I did. I remember this from our webinar. Okay, and then we'd set it up and set up what's called an ICMA, easy peasy lemon squeezy. We can switch you right over if it's what you want to do and if it makes sense for your career.
All right. So there's a question that's come up in several different forms that I'm going to ask Dr. Scott to address, because I know that he's talked to lots of students about this through advising. So there have been several questions about study abroad. Is it possible? When is the best time to do it in the curriculum? And I know that this is an issue that Dr. Scott has advised people on before, so maybe he could address that for us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. I've had a lot of students go abroad, many of my advisees, but also students from my own research group, right? So people who are active in doing research, so it's very much possible to graduate in 4 years, be involved in research, and study abroad. You can do all of those together. It just requires a little bit of proactive planning in terms of setting up when you're going to study abroad and sort of what your goals are for study abroad. You just have to think a little bit ahead in terms of like what general education courses you might want to hold off on taking, because they're going to be the easiest to transfer back. But we have a really great study abroad office. So we coordinate with them to help you decide on a program, and they can help you with a lot of the logistics of like, where am I going to go? Does my financial aid apply if I go abroad? Which programs work for me? And then you can work with your cohort advisor to figure out, well, how do I adjust my chemistry or biochemistry curriculum so that I can fit this in and still graduate in the timeline that I'm planning to? And we do that all the time. Most people tend to go in their junior year because that's where we have the most flexibility in terms of pushing courses around, but we have students who go in their sophomore year or in their senior year. You can also obviously go in the summer. And so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of when you do that. And students go all over the world. I had students from my research group last year go to Spain, to Italy, a variety of different places. So yeah, lots of great opportunities and very doable to fit it in with our program.
All right. So we've had 2 questions that I want to send to Dr. Bush. Another one is a major change question about the possibility of changing from biochem to biology. And then there's another question that's about registration and block scheduling and when that would take place. So I'm going to send those both over to Dr. Bush.
Excellent, thank you. First, changing majors within the College of Science and Math is normally pretty straightforward with a couple of asterisks, okay? So if you're making good progress in your degree, it tends to be pretty straightforward to change over to a program like biology or physics, mostly because the first 2 years of biology and physics look a heck of a lot, well, at least the first year, look a heck of a lot like the first year of chemistry and biochemistry. Typically, those majors are relatively easy to change into if you're in good standing and if you're doing well, or you're doing okay. I can tell you that kinesiology and public health is kind of a hard major to move into, only because they have hundreds of people asking to move in and they don't have enough seats. It isn't that you wouldn't be qualified to do it, it's just that there's a ton of seats. There's a seat problem. So I see if chemistry and biochemistry is a semi-permeable membrane, chemistry to biology or chemistry to physics or chemistry to math is a little less permeable, but it's totally doable. There's a myth out there that you can't change majors at Cal Poly, and that's just not true. Again, within the College of Science and Math, it's easier than between colleges, but it's not impossible to even go between colleges. There was a question about the block scheduling. So as a first-year student, you're going to be block scheduled into the majority of your classes. This seems a little intrusive, but I got to tell you, it's also really nice. It means that seniors who put off taking Gen Chem until their last year don't get to push you out of that class. You're going to get your Gen Chem, you're going to get your bio, you're going to get your physics and math, you're going to get the core courses you need to be able to make good progress towards graduation in that first year. Transfer students, I saw this a little earlier. It might have been answered directly to you, but I'm going to say it out loud too. You won't be blocked in, but during summer, there's transfer days, and Dr. Scott and I and Dr. Keist and Dr. Fogel and Dr. Imus will sit down with you, and we will help you get the classes you need. That's one of the things we'll analyze where you're at and help you get the classes you need. So you won't be blocked in, but we will help you get those classes. All right. Did I answer the questions, Dr. McDonald?
I think you did.
Oh
so
my gosh, what are the odds?
Very last question. I'm going to actually take us back to the very first question that someone typed in the chat box when they first joined. And I'm going to let Dr. Bush answer this question and then wrap up for us. So this person asked, and I think this is a great question, what is the #1 thing you would like us to know about chemistry at Cal Poly?
Now that's got to be a plant. Whoever asked that, thank you very much. You're a mensch. I appreciate it. So I've thought a lot about this, and I kind of led with it when we started, but I'm going to say it again. In our department, undergraduates are our focus. You are our focus, right? That means when we plan our classes, we plan them with you in mind. When we teach our Gen Chem, we're going to use best practices to raise the probability that you're going to be successful and learn there. Make sure that our classes are small. Make sure that you have a lot of support along the way. When we choose research projects, it means we're going to choose research projects that you're going to actually get in there and do, right? You're not going to read just about them. You're going to do them. You're going to have an opportunity to break a whole bunch of stuff. All right, mom and dad, you're not going to write a check for that. It's going to be okay. But you're going to have a chance to break a whole bunch of stuff. You're going to have a chance in this department because, again, I'm going to say it again, undergraduates are our primary focus. Because of that focus, you're going to have a chance to go see things in research that nobody else in the whole wide world has ever seen before. You're going to get to be the first one to see it. I got to tell you, the first time I saw that, it was trivial. It was in my undergraduate research experience. I got to see something with arabinose isomerase and europium embedded in it and lasers, and I don't even remember everything, but I remember my advisor, Dan Garrity, looked at me and said, you know, Seth, you're the first one ever to see that. And I was like, holy moly, that was me. That was part of what I did. And that turned into a career path that I just was important to me. So undergraduates are our primary focus in classes, in our research, and it really in our advising. That's why we have our cohort advisors. Our cohort advisors are there to help us navigate this space in 4 years. And that's our goal. All right, so we're out of time. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our panelists here. So everybody, all panelists, give yourself a pat on the back and say thank you from Seth. I know that it's likely that you're going to have a whole bunch of new questions after this ends that you want to know the answer to. Please, with burgers and cheese, I typed it in now. It's chem@calpoly.edu. You're welcome to write us there. We'll get those answers out to you just as best we can. I really just can't wait to see you guys in actual real physical space. So yay, and welcome to Cal Poly, and welcome to chemistry and biochemistry. And I'm going to say goodbye. So goodbye, everybody.